welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We'd love to hear from you. Send your questions and comments to dj@ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And we are unscathed, unscarred, unsomething. I'm Michael Lyons.
Okay. And I'm Margaret.
I'm Margaret, and I'm very short on sleep. No, I thought it was Artist First Galactic Radio. Oh, I like that. I think we're on Artist First Galactic Radio. Coming to you from somewhere near Uranus. No, that's not true. I mean, it might be true. Anyway, welcome to the show, to the Soul of the Everyman, where tonight we will be counting scars.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think there is a long tradition in human history. This is going to be off the topic, so just bear with me. But there's a long tradition in among human cultures, I should say, of using scars as not just as really a sort of a marking. You know, the first tattoos, even before they had ink or anything to do them, were scarification. They used to mark you permanently at certain points of your life in many cultures that would show that you had passed a certain mark, and it would be, you know, scars are things. Our topic tonight is scars. But we came to this basically because it's an interesting topic, because scars are something we're all familiar with. But it just occurred to me that they're also sort of marks of passage in more ways than one.
Right. You're marked by life, and ritual scarring is a rite of passage usually into manhood normally. And I forgot what the African culture was, but they scar the cheeks.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other one?
Native Americans too. There was scarification rituals. You're right. Sometimes mostly for men, but for boys becoming men, if you will. But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
Oh yeah, no. Just I was thinking of the patterning that winds up on people's skins, and this is the older culture before it was just with the tattooing, like the Polynesians. The tattooing had to do with something in your life, whether it is you're tattooing a totem on you, where your energy makes a connection to a certain type of animal, or just the fish patterns that they have, those spirals on the body. And it's usually a warrior.
But the interesting thing, really, our topic is scars, and the idea of a scar is it is a permanent mark. You know, it is something which, in one sense, it's always a mark of a trial. You know, whether it's a scraped knee or something far more life-threatening or far more dire, and those are the scars that you can see. Those are the physical scars, the scars which you pick up through a trial which involves your limbs or your body, and then there's, of course, you know, the actual sort of emotional. I won't say emotional necessarily scars, but they are emotional scars. They're passages through trauma which don't leave a physical mark,
right?
But they can be memories. They can be they can evidence themselves as sort of behaviors, or we've talked about this in the past, where an emotional trauma becomes a sort of a little knot of energy in your mind, which then can be triggered later in a different situation where you you have now learned a response to a particular stimulus. The stimulus being whatever it is, yelling, let's say. And when you take a spectrum of people and somebody yells, most people will say, "Oh, you're just being annoying." But some people who have experienced trauma through that particular situation plug that all. It triggers an energy, sort of an energy wave, an emotional energy wave. That comes from trauma. It is like a scar, but it's invisible. You can't tell if you just line people up that this particular person is sensitive to yelling, for argument's sake. So these experiences through life, which mark us, are both physical and non-physical, emotional,
Mm-hmm.
or they're both visible and invisible. And then there's the one sort of constant about them, though, is that they are marks really of healing. In most cases, they're a reminder or a in the physical case, an evidence of a trauma which is left over in a functional but not yet perfect sense. What I mean by that is, if you are injured, at the time of your injury, you can't do what you need to do. Your thumb is sore, or whatever. You've got a cut. You've got a wound. You've got something which is wrong with you. You've broken a bone, and then that heals. The body is a wonderful healer. It heals, but yet the functionality is restored. But it isn't without evidence. The body heals, but it heals itself imperfectly, functionally fine. But yet, why does it leave? Why do you even see a scar? Is sort of the interesting thing about it, right? What's the function?
Right. You don't return to what you looked like before. There is a mark of your passage through that particular trauma or event.
Mm.
And the reminder that all things pass with time.
And you could almost look at life as just a endless, or not endless, but a sort of an arc of wounding and healing throughout your whole life. Everything that happens to you creates a different you. You get experience. You get you get your cuts and bruises. You get your emotional trials or traumas. But each time, each individual instance changes you, both physically and emotionally, and then even just over the course of aging. And that culture that we talked about, the cultures that we talked about before, using scarring or tattooing, which still is leaves in essence a different kind of scar, as a way of marking that this person is transitioning and making a very obvious signpost on their physical form to say they have gone from one stage to another.
Right. And sometimes I think it has to do with the fact that a human being needs to see that they've gone through things, to be able to acknowledge it for yourself and then for others. But again, doing it so that others can see it is that affirmation again, that yes, you have gone through something.
Mm. That's a very interesting point. We should revisit that. Not go too. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you, but
yeah, no. Just if you realize that in your own mindset, just the way you are experiencing things, the fact that you've gone through something and it has left vestiges of itself in your healing process changes you at a deeper level. And that's events that hit right through the facades that you may put up or projections that you sort of want to appear, but when there's an event that happens, it breaks through all of that and touches into a part of you that really hurts. It's a pain that it's a pain that acknowledges that, yeah, you've experienced life to the point where a part of you is truly broken.
Mm.
And your journey is coming back to a wholeness, but different. And that kind of pain, the physical body at least, I think there's a psychological aspect that needs to see the scar there.
I think that's exactly correct, and it goes back to the earlier point too. I think the fact that we have a scar does two things. It is a physical representation of something which happened to you, and it has tied to it a story, and that story can be important, or at least can be something that another person will notice, and explaining how you got a scar, whether it's emotional, physical, some sort of trauma, is a way of learning a lot about the person you're talking to and yourself. The marks that we gather upon ourselves, were they to come all the way back to the previous state with no physical change whatsoever, it would be almost as though it didn't happen. The reality of a scar is a tie back to the reality of the event, and I think it's something which is important almost for us in this physical state. We become mindful of that period in time because the scar brings us back, as you said, right back to when that thing occurred, even if it's not something that you can see. That the idea that you have this sort of emotional charge, which is triggered by an external event, oftentimes is seen as toxic or can be debilitating because it can take you out of the now and back into something which is past. But I think that there's in the acceptance of those things, that I am different and this is why I'm different, and that in not just balling it up and leaving it there as sort of an unexploded ordnance that somebody will kick off once in a while, that it becomes in our own experience, when the term is I can relate, and the relatability of your experience to another, which may be very similar or at least have similar elements, is the positive part of the scar. When you say to someone in the physical, I lost my limb too. Here's my scar. I don't have a knee. I don't have any leg below the knee anymore. That physical deformity or that physical lack, that scar, also allows you to. It allows your experience to shape and help form the outcome of someone whose experience is much newer or much more, their healing process is new. It's incomplete. It's just beginning. And to see someone else who said, in this dark moment, when you have such a terrible trauma happen to you, there's an element of shock and an element of despair, and you have to find something within yourself. And it does help to have someone else show you, here's my scar. This is where this happened to me. It unites, is what I'm trying to say. Unites those two people.
We relate to each other through our scars. And
yes.
The common scars are the most easy to begin to relate to another person, because you know what it's like to be immersed in that trauma. And as you said, many times one that has already healed can speak to someone who has just been hurt or is about to go into that healing process.
The wounded healer.
Right. The one thing about the wounded healer, though, is some people focus more on the wound than the actual healing. And the healing process must be undergone in order to have the scar. It brings to mind a story from the pediatric cancer wards. There had been a young boy named John who had a sarcoma, and it turned out that they had to amputate below the knee because I believe it was the right shin had that sarcoma and had grown, and they were trying very hard to save it because he's a young kid, but it had to be removed. And I think his father was more devastated than he was at this idea. But he had undergone the operation, and then he was going through rehabilitation, and they had fitted him with a prosthetic. And this kid was just so joyful, loved doing this. He was just could not wait to be able to have this thing on so he could run again. He was one of those kids that just loved running. And I still remember it was a week after he had gotten it, and he was getting so good at manipulating the prosthetic that he had been in his gym class and proceeded to break a bone in what they had done is when they took off the section, they had to remanipulate the bones, and one of the little bones had broken. And his mother was just rolling her eyes like, you would do this. But I had been speaking with a young man who was in the peds ward, and he had just had his leg amputated. And to see this little guy just happily running through, enjoying the fact that he can move again, this gave him so much hope. He's like, wow, John, you're amazing. And it was just a wonderful, those two basically formed a beautiful friendship.
Exactly. And as you said, through relating experience and at different stages, right? At different stages. I think there's another even one that you can appreciate more than I can. You know, the experience of childbirth is a scarring experience. In fact, it's a scar that never really ends. It goes on and on, 20, 30 years. Anyway, but the experience of childbirth, I think, first of all, there's a passage in all cultures. You know, the passage between a maiden and a mother in human cultures is a huge one. Before it, you're just a child, and after it, you have a child. Or you've crossed a very bright line, and the scarring that comes, and there's lots of it. We don't have to go into all the gory details, but there's scarring involved. These are badges of honor, and certainly when you come to the experience, you can relate. You relate differently to the other women who have had children. Now you join a different club here.
Yeah, you do. You do. That trauma, which is mainly a body trauma, although
there are mental aspects. Yes.
Yes. It's again, and I think we've said this before in many older cultures. They had, I believe it was in the Greeks in Sparta. The males were supposed to become warriors, hardened warriors, but they honored the women for childbirthing because that was their passage. And many women did die from bringing children into the world.
Mm.
That was their trial to bring this baby through. So, and it is the trial that's been since the beginning of time.
Exactly.
And regardless of the fact that you may have your husband there or your significant other there,
Moral support.
it's a one-woman job.
You bet.
So you find out what you're made of. And I can understand why the older generations back in our parents' generation, the fathers were always out in the waiting room. Remember all that stuff? The guys were never in the birthing area.
Mm.
And it's one of these. It's an event. There are women that they have no freaking clue what's going on, and they don't know what to do. Literally, like climbing the wall or in and out of the bed.
But that's a scarring event in many ways. But it's also something which you heal from, and I believe it becomes a badge of honor. You change, your physical form changes. You never go back to your childbearing days, because you just can't. But yet the trade-off is the let's call it wisdom, or at least certainly perspective and relatability. You go from someone who has potential to someone who has accomplished something.
Yes, you have to go through.
Yes.
You must go through. And nowadays it's just a marvelous thing to be able to have a lot of healthy babies in whatever way that need be, whether you've done it naturally or C-sections or however this baby will come out.
You mentioned before the cancer wards. Many people go through surgeries, and the scar of a surgery becomes a lasting imprint on your body. It can be heart surgery. It can be surgery for various ailments, whatever it is. But people bond over these things. Some people, there is a sentiment that the scarring which is left over from a surgery, let's say a mastectomy, which happens to far too many women, unfortunately, it's not something to be hidden or to be, some women even some women, of course, opt for reconstruction, but some say, no, I want to wear this new reality. And these what I'm trying to get to is these passages are a testament to a struggle, to a struggle which brought you through to a new reality. In the case of children, it's sort of a nightmare, but never-ending nightmare. I love you kids. In case you're listening, I don't mean any of that. Right? Right. Yeah. Completely don't mean it, but it is a nightmare. No, it's a passage through as you said earlier. It requires you find out what you're made of, and I think we said this before the show started. It tests your mettle,
yes.
Literally in some cases.
Yes, those are the scars that you will bear. And it doesn't matter what your outward appearance is. If it's tested your mettle, your character, to that point, you don't freaking care.
And maybe that's part of it. Is a scar is a testament to the fact that you've been through something, you've been tested, and you've come out the other side.
Right. And you don't. I guess the best way to put it is that you know who you are, and nothing else is going to dissuade you from it. You know who you are because you've been through it. The pain, the blood, everything. You've been through it. So you know what you're made of. And it doesn't matter in the slightest that, well, gee, maybe you should cover that up. And you're like, no, this is who I am.
Right.
This is who I am.
But I think that's very important because I think that's the final stage of healing. And it doesn't have to be like very long and drawn out, but you accept that this is who you are now. That at the onset of a trial, no one wants it.
Right.
You want to reject it. You want to say, I don't want this. Let this cup pass. Even Christ said, hey, could we do this another way? Is there another way? But when you accept it and then you go through it, you bear those marks as the badge of honor, and also as a perpetual reminder that your mettle was tested and you came through it. Once you accept that this is who you are now, I was a child, or I was, a young woman who didn't have children, and now I'm a mother, and that's a different thing, and you can't undo it. You can't unscramble the egg of your life. Your life goes on, getting slowly changed, and your life, the passage through life, each gray hair is a scar, in some regards. It's a testament to the fact that you've lived through. We talk about moments of crisis for scars, but each moment of life lived changes you. So we're constantly kind of being
Modified,
scarred, broken down little by little, but yet in the moment lived, it is a triumph to get through that moment. Not in the sense that you're running through the moment, but you're living the moment, and it changes you.
it will change you if you accept the fact that this event is an event, but you are more than the event. It's understanding truly who you are. When your mettle is tested, you really understand the core of who you are.
We have to come. That point is that you are not the event is a very, very important point. But let's take this event to go back to the studio and have a little break, get a couple more scars. We'll come out on the other side. We'll talk about metal.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book one of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, D-Man. And I didn't get any scars over the break, you? Nope. But we could have. I know. We jumped right into this, and it was a good thing. But I do want to kind of backtrack a little bit because we did have a nice quote, and it probably will be up on the website if it's not up there already. And I wanted to read it. This was by a man by the name of Steve Marboli, who is amazingly anonymous, and I have no idea who he is. But if in fact he wrote this, because we all know that truth lives on the internet, so we know it probably is true. But I love the sentiment. It says, "My scars tell a story. They are a reminder of times when life tried to break me, but failed." And then he goes on and says, "They are the markings of where the structure of my character was welded." Mm-hmm. And we both thought that was very evocative, especially, taking the 2 statements by themselves. The first one, my scars tell a story. We've been talking about that. The scars, and we just generalized this. Life is a process of endlessly changing and scarring you and healing from those wounds of life, of just living. And your life tells a story. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the scar that is significant is when you are overwhelmed. There are differences between, gradual changes or learning experiences. But when you are overwhelmed, that's when you scar, because you've broken the limit on what either your body could take or what your mind could take or what your emotions could take.
Well, and even what he says here, which is correct, where life tried to break me, and life is sort of of course the abstract, where something happened, some event, and this is what I want to get back to is you mentioned very much at the end of the last half hour that you are not the event. When the event happens, it feels like you are the event, that nothing else is that the whole world has become this thing that's happening to you. And it is very important to realize that you are not the event. It's almost the very first step. It's that I'm still me underneath all this outside stuff, cancer, heart attack, whatever it is, any trauma that's coming down upon you, war, pestilence, whatever it is. feels immediately as though you are it, or it's trying to tell you that you're nothing but.
Right. Right.
And you mentioned the overwhelming. That's the overwhelming. It tries to take you over.
Right. You have reached a limit of some kind, and you are overwrought by pain of some kind, whether it is mental or physical or emotional. And that overwhelm, which everyone has felt, being overwhelmed, you're just blinking, going, "Oh my God, what is going on?" You have to get your bearings and then take a step forward. There is no going back once you've been overwhelmed. In other words, you can never go back to where you were.
This is a very, very, very interesting, very important point. To two things: that you can't go back. The event happens. It's happened, and the thing you just said, taking a step, is a volitional act.
Mm-hmm. You must choose at that point. This is where you begin to know who you are.
Right.
What is your choice? And that's what speaks to you and understanding who you are. What has been your choice? And then the direction in which you take the step speaks volumes in so many ways. And sometimes people, they just want, well, somebody else make this decision for me. Which way am I supposed to go?
So tempting.
Yeah, because you're thinking, I am completely unqualified to make this decision. You do it. And you're just like...
Well, or tell me what to do,
Well, and the wise ones understand that I can only advise you. I can explain what I see. But the choice is yours, because you understand that that person making the choice is going to have to walk it out once they make the choice.
Yeah.
You're not the one walking it out.
You're just dripping with gems tonight. Exactly right. And that's the other thing about the scars, is they happen to you, and you individually have to walk them out, regardless of everybody else trying to help you. They're reminded of two things. The passage in Christopher's book that we wrote. If it's you, it's you. And if you've read the book, you know what it is. I don't want to explain it, but basically, when something happens, there is a moment where you think, please let it not be me.
Yeah.
But it is you. And then you have to accept that. That's maybe the very first scar, accepting that. And then there's the moment of overwhelm. You just don't know what to do, and you have to make the decision. And in our case, we had to make the decision to fight, even though you don't know what to do, and you don't know what the next thing is going to happen, and you have no idea how to fight. The key is the step to say, I will fight. I decide to take up arms. Even if you failed, the only important point is to decide to take the step, to make the decision.
That's what marks you.
Mm.
And that mark is the beginning of the scar.
Yes.
Because you got to walk it out from beginning to end. And once you walk it out and you see the fullness of the damage, then you have to make the decision to heal. And that is also a singular process. No matter who else may be with you, it does help to have other people around you that can advise you, because they've been through something similar or different points in the healing, but it's still your process. So you make the decision to live it right then and there, to walk through it, to live the moment, step by step.
And what we said, you in that decision, you do two things. You say, I am the person walking through it. So you disassociate yourself. It's not me. The thing that happened isn't me. I am the thing that says I'm going to accept it and take the step. So that puts it in context. It is a life-changing existential thing, but it's still not you. You are eternal. You are connected with the all. The part of you that is indestructible is the part that takes the step. And no trauma matters to that part, but you have to walk it out in the trauma, in the healing. But the part that says, I am not this, I am me. I will walk it out. I will take the step. That's the part that's, as you said, that's where the scar begins. The healing is right there. The very first part of the scar is right there.
Mm-hmm. And it's part of understanding your pathway. And it may not be what you would choose, but it is the decision that's placed before you.
Right. It's not your preference. Like not what you imagined. My life was going to be all puppies and kittens, and all of a sudden we had children. Ugh. But no. but it's not what you imagined. But that metal testing is it's an eye check. It's a gut check. It's a who are you check at your core, and do you have the volition to say take the step? Because that's the gut check.
Well, yeah. When you're overwhelmed, your body has been designed for either fight or flight. So which do you choose? And everyone understands that feeling. When suddenly you are in a situation that's so dangerous, so life-threatening, whether it's your life or someone else's life. Do you fight or do you run? And that experience is the beginning. So your motivation on making the choice matters. Are you thinking only of yourself? And if it's only you, then all you want to do is run away. And we've seen that. That is a valid reaction. But it doesn't mean that you have to choose it. You may feel that way. But what matters to you? Is it just what you feel or what someone you care about feels? Someone you love feels? And that's what we saw. I mean, the primary example was the cancer wards. And parents, you had a myriad of reactions there. There were some parents that just wanted to run away from this.
And in truth, I think all those reactions, the panoply of reactions, are the same for everyone, but it's choice that matters. But to back up a little bit, so the real statement is you have to walk it out. You have to separate yourself from the event and the unitary spirit, which is the indestructible part of you.
Right. You are not the event. You have to know who you are. You are not the event.
And that realization is even right before the step, in essence. And then the step is volition, it's choice, and then and very much matters intention. Intention. It becomes the gut check is to check your intention. You have to resonate at the heart level to find intention. Your true intent is here. It's not up here. Here the mental is all spin, 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 but that resonance here tells you who you are and where the next step goes. If it comes from here, regardless of how it looks, it's usually the right step.
Well, the choices that are made through your heart answer one simple question. Will I regret not taking this path? They will put a whole selection of ways to go. which path is it that you choose? And the only answer is, well, I regret not taking this. For the rest of my life, I regret not taking this, not trying this, not going this way, no matter how painful it may be.
We say in language, you say, which path has heart? Which path, in essence, has the resonance of the heart? But I think when you follow the path of the heart, it's a path that also scars.
Yes. Your heart gets broken
all the time.
It's realizing that, humanity out there, at least my own personal viewpoint is I realize that the sea of humanity that I see all have broken hearts, whether they show it outwardly or not. There is a broken part in them, and how they deal with it is usually what you see in front of you. They become the result of how they've decided to deal with that brokenness. And some people are still trying to run. Some people are, okay, I am going to deal with this as much as I can. And some people are stuck in the pain. They think, oh, my heart's broken, so I have got to stay in this pain. It's like, no, because that's right where you're right on the edge of any kind of addiction you can possibly name to distract you. But you are not the pain. Pain may have been a result of what has happened, but you are not the pain. You are something more.
And as you said, you have to get past all those things and walk it out. So just to go back, our scars do tell a story. The brokenness is also a story of scarring and of healing, and you can see that two things happen. Your metal is checked, and in this particular quote, the markings of where the structure of my character was welded, I think I understand what he was trying to say is in essence the work that is done. It's both scars. It leaves a mark. When you weld something, you can see where it was welded together, but yet it also rebuilds. Welding is a process of construction, not destruction. It says in the middle there, the times when life tried to break me but failed. And I would say that the times when life broke you, but you decided to weld it back together. You decided to take the step, the scar, but you have to heal. Because he's using break me as forever broken. And I think we all get broken, but the step is to say, I am not the damage or the damager. I am something that heals.
I believe what he's trying to say is defeated.
Exactly.
Life tried to defeat me.
Right. Break me in that sense, right.
Mm-hmm. And that's not... He discovered that he's much more than the event.
Let's digress on that for a moment, if you wouldn't mind. Because as I think people do see a traumatic event as something which tries to defeat you, as an adversary. And I think that it's wrong in one really specific way, is that these events aren't... The only thing that can defeat you is yourself. And it feels externalized, as though the event is an adversary. But the true adversary is that you identify and make the event you, and let the event with the power of your own self defeat you. Because the event can be for everybody the same. You have 100 people with the same type of horrible diagnosis or whatever it is. But each individual has the moment to choose that I'm not the event, and that I am something more or different, and that I'm not going to treat it as an adversary or as another individual. I have to say, person that's fighting me here is me putting myself into the event. It's making the event into a person that is actually me, that I identify with the event and that I'm defeated by it. This is important to change your perspective. Almost in the very first thing is to say, yeah, it feels like the whole world is crushing in on me, and that I'm nothing but this event, whatever it is, and that's intense, acute pressure to be defeated, to go into the event and become the event and let it dissolve you entirely. But I would say, Margaret, that people can go through an event which eventually results in their death and still be completely triumphant, in the sense that they never let the event define them. It was never that this thing is me. That, yes, this thing is going to take my physical life away, but the indestructible thing that is me is not the event that took my life away.
Right. There are those that identify with pain. I am this pain, and continuing with that, and they eat themselves alive doing it that way.
Or do the other, like the addictions, to get it, to push it away, so to muffle it so much.
Yeah, you are trying to identify with something other than pain. And maybe that is just remembering that, and this is something that Chris said, it's just pain. It's only pain. And it's understanding that is an event that I've got to deal with. It's not who I am.
I think the witness of that was a special moment. It was near the end of his life, of course, and you were the one who witnessed it. And then we both shared that. And it was a revelation. I know it was a revelation to you, and it was a revelation to me. Because at that time we were much younger, and we were going through this with him, but it was an event that was his path to walk, but we were right there with him. And that realization from a 7-year-old was like a lightning bolt. It was like an illumination. Like it was truly revelatory. And now, looking back now 20 odd years in the past, I say that taught me so much at that point in my life. I thought that was profound.
They have gone through so much. If the understanding comes in that just pain. You're not dominated by the pain. Pain doesn't dictate your life unless you choose it to. It's only pain. It hurts for a while, or it hurts constantly, but we deal.
He had, at that time, and now I think we understand it much better, but at that time, he had separated, in that moment, we realized that he had separated himself from us and become his own entity, in the sense that he wasn't looking to us to take something away from him, to take a pain away from him. He was going to manage it on his own.
He had reached that point before this event.
I agree, but I think that's when, at least I'll speak for myself, that's when I realized that he had done that.
Yeah, no, I'd say that the events that he had to go through in order to fight for his life, and he fought for every breath he had. He was so conscious of that, and how precious it was to be alive and to be with other people. That type of living refines your core, your heart, and your mind, and your emotions to a point where the maturity level is vast. There are many older people who haven't even come to that point.
Mm.
But the openness by which he approached life, many children, there's no preconceived notions of the way life should be.
No.
It just is. And understanding that life is, and you walk it through step by step, and you're not alone. Because there's love around you all the time. That is the beauty that is around you in your life. And whether you acknowledge it or not, maturity is in the ability to see that beauty moment to moment.
Yeah. I mean, to go back one little bit, the experience, the acuteness and the overwhelmingness of the experience trains you up quicker. It's a weird way of thinking about it, but to live a life that quickly under those circumstances transformed someone who should have had, let's just say 80, 90, 120 years, whatever, to gain those same experiences. These kids, and really all humans, if they accept and walk through those trials, you change at the pace that is far beyond, because in essence, the fire, gold refined in fire, you are transformed at so much more rapidly that it looks from the outside to be almost impossible, but yet it only comes through accepting and walking. And of course we helped him whatever we could do, but he came to it, and these kids and human beings in these conditions come to it through their own volition. He had to walk the walk, but that walk each step was decades. Each portion of it brought him so much further that it was astounding. It was amazing in some regard.
Yes. And your scars, they tell you that you've walked through it and you're still alive.
Yep.
And it is with your scars that you take a leap into the next phase. And I believe we've reached the end.
I'm scarred for life.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all? Yes. And I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.